Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to episode 11 of the OTO podcast, featuring my co-host, Bannon Crowley from Next Man Up MMA. And we are recording this right after UFC 318, obviously featuring the BMF title, the most serious non-gimmick title in all of MMA, starting off with Max Holloway defeating Dustin Poirier by decision in their trilogy. Banning, thoughts on the fight and your prediction on how you thought it was going to go before the fight.
Yeah, I thought that Max Holloway was going to win this one pretty easily. He went out there. They did go 5 rounds, obviously, but it did kind of go how you expected to, that we talked about last time, where, maybe Max wasn't trying to go out there and kill him. He did get some knockdowns though, as we saw, throughout that fight. But overall, I'm not really surprised by the outcome. But at least Dustin didn't get killed in the final fight and have to walk out, or I guess get dragged out on a stretcher and go to the hospital like someone else on this card that we can talk about a little bit later.
Oh yeah, going back to our predictions on the fight, mine at least was Max Holloway by decision. I know a lot of people were taking Dustin here, maybe because it was in New Orleans, maybe because it was his retirement fight, or the fact that he won the first two fights against Max. But in my mind, Max is on a different level of striking than Dustin. I thought he was gonna hit and move, just be too fast for Dustin, and it turned out he was. But I will say, 155 Max is not the same guy as 145. Not for better or for worse, but is it a different fighter in a different weight class? Where, and I believe it was round two when Dustin dropped Max. That was kind of wild to see. That was the second time Max has been dropped in his entire UFC career, which is insane to even think about. Max is only 33, but though he's been in the UFC for so long, taking so many beatings, but more so handing out so many beatings that he might be getting up there toward. I'm not saying he deserves a title shot or not, but it's getting like it's like do or die for Max, where that Ilya knockout was so brutal for him. But Max is like in my mind, he's put his name back up out there for in the lightweight division. But who do you have? Assuming Paddy Pimblett's not going to fight Ilya, whether it's for Max defending his BMF belt again, or if he's gonna really try and go for that belt again, maybe fight Ilya again at 155. What's next for Max Holloway?
Yeah, I think the next fight for Max Holloway, I think there's two different options. I don't think it's going to be Ilya. I think there's some other guys that would deserve it over him. But I think it should either be Charles Oliveira. I mean, that's a pretty easy one to make at this point, just because, Oliveira just lost. So both of these guys can kind of fight maybe a number one contender type fight that we could see. Or, another one um, that I kind of want to throw out there. That maybe hasn't been talked about as much could be maybe Max Holloway versus Paddy Pimblett in a number one contender fight. I think that would be an interesting fight to see. And I think that could be pretty decent. Paddy Pimblett, if he's going to show that he has these levels against a guy like Max Holloway, which I think Holloway's good. I do think at lightweight it's a little different. Like you said, he's a different fighter. I don't know if I'm as confident with him. If Paddy Pimblett just continues to get better each time, I think he needs one more fight in between. And if he's not going to fight Justin Gaethje, a Max Holloway fight could be very entertaining to watch. And I mean, right now I would take Paddy Pimblett in that fight because of his grappling skill. And if he could take him to the ground.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of options at lightweight where a few months ago or very recently at 317, when we saw Paddy face off against Ilya, Dana was not too happy about that. There is a ton of beef there and that would be a great fight, but I like that idea a lot of more of a title contender fight. Because Islam Makhachev, for all we know, is a welterweight now. He seemed to completely run away from Islam the second, or from Ilya the second Ilya moved up to lightweight. So in my mind, I would like to see Ilya. I think he'll be ready, like honestly, pretty soon, maybe a few months or so. Um, I would like to say Ilya fight Armin. Armin should have fought for the belt by now. I think he missed weight by a lot. Was wrestling Nina drama, whatever he was up to. But I think it is time for Armin. He has no one else to fight. He beat Charles, and he's the realistic number one contender over anyone else right now. So Patty versus Max would be a banger fight. And for me, the Charles fight would be, I think that is the one I'd be looking most forward to because one, it's a rematch of a fight that we never really got to see when Charles hurt his throat or something like that. Max is giving crazy throat that fight,
Hey,
but
10 years ago too. A
that's
lot has
very true.
changed.
A lot has changed in both of them completely. But another option could be you go for that BMF belt. It could be against someone like Dan Hooker, who's been trying to fight for so long. And Hooker's been trying to fight Gaethje a lot recently, which would be basically a BMF fight, but he broke that hand, hasn't been able to fight. And Gaethje is doing, he's doing the give me the belt or I'm gonna retire whole thing. So I don't think Gaethje's gonna want to fight down and fight Hooker anymore. So I think we could see a Max Hooker fight for the BMF belt, or we could see the Patty fight, which would be a banger. But either way, Max dominated in the trilogy. Did you
Hmm.
have Max or Dustin just to go back?
Yeah, I did have Max in this fight. Also, I mean, if Max wants to step up in competition too at lightweight, wants to fight a former title challenger, Money Moicano's out there as well.
Hmm. That's certainly a name. That's certainly a guy on the roster for sure.
Hmm.
Moicano coming off a loss against Beneil Dariush, by the way, just throwing that out there. But
Controversial loss.
some could put it that way. But moving on to the co-main event, the card was a little lackluster. A lot of people knew that on paper at least, but throughout the actual fights itself, I thought it was a very highly entertaining card.
Hmm.
Paulo Costa in one of his more entertaining fights against Roman Kopylov. And these guys are Paulo Costa was once a title challenger, now kind of this a middle or a middling middleweight, I guess, against Kopylov. And I certainly was surprised going back to the press conference when Costa was literally bouncing up and down throughout the press conference because he had to pee. Not sure what that was all about, but maybe it had something to do with his increased activity in this fight. Kopylov is a very smart striker, a crafty striker. He likes to hit and get hit. And that's something where you assumed Costa would be a complete counter striker like he normally is, but it was still a decent fight. Costa did his thing that he normally does, but I can't really be mad at him or throw shots at him because he won the fight against a very good striker. So Costa, he might be back, but I was impressed by him. He did the same stick as normal, so I don't think he's an actual title contender, but he might be if he wants to be the gatekeeper that is always in great shape and he's just good striking, fluid striking, then hey, maybe that's his new future.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get too excited about this because he still does have four losses in his last six fights. And I mean, as we know, that barn burner against Sean Strickland last year, just a fantastic fight. I mean, these guys should just fight again because they just love going back and forth, the decision masters right there, just getting a little tap tap in. I'm not a big fan of Paulo Costa. He got his win here to keep himself in the rankings, keep him having a job, because who knows? I mean, sorry. Um, JOB there. At 34 years old, if he would have had his fifth loss in the last six fights, might have been time to hang it up from the UFC and send him to the GFL or fight in Misfits against someone maybe KSI. But he's keeping his job. He's staying around. Maybe he could fight someone if he wants to go up. Um, I mean, I don't. There's other guys up here that potentially he could fight. I think an easy one would be the loser of Fluffy Hernandez versus Roman Dolidze. I mean, all those guys I kind of find they're in the same like group right now. Like, I don't know. I'm not too impressed with any of them at this point. Most of them pretty old at this point as well. So I'd be fine with him fighting the loser of that. Or if he wants to fight against another guy that's coming up, maybe another like prospect type guy, who knows? Whatever he wants to do next, as long as he loses. This was an unsuccessful hate watch. But hopefully next time we can go out there and get him. Maybe he'll fight Ikram. If he wants to fight again. I know he got knocked out by Robert Whitaker. But he won his last fight, so maybe he could move up into the rankings with that fight. But overall, I was very disappointed Roman just didn't really show up for the fight, it seemed like, and Paulo Costa was doing whatever he had to do in the bathroom, um, in between. Who knows?
Yeah, and if we want an incredibly boring fight, we could even do two guys from this card, Vittori versus Costa. Could be
Hmm.
a loser, you cut them. If it doesn't end in a finish, you cut both of them, snip, snip. But yeah, I'm kind of sick of Costa for sure. He's just a counter striker. We've seen it. If you're gonna do that, you have to get finishes. You have to actually do something to excite the fans. That was not it. Similar to Vittori versus Allen, where they're just like both human punching bags. It's not the type of fights people want to see. But speaking of human punching bags, Kevin Holland, it's sad to say his title run is delayed slightly, very, very slightly.
Uh-huh.
But it was a heartbreaking loss. I think he almost could have won that if he maybe showed a little bit of bravado at the end. But considering the fact that I believe he's probably in the hospital still right now,
Hmm.
maybe he did truly lose that fight. It is sad. His first loss back at welterweight, where we predicted he would go undefeated until 2028, I believe, against Jake Paul or Bo Nickal. So it's
Uh-huh.
definitely a tough stretch, but. D-Rod's a good striker. We'll give him that. I mean, I obviously thought Kevin Holland was going to get a decision win. I thought he was going to point fight him. D-Rod's good. He's got a good chin, but they both were dropping each other. Kevin Holland got hurt very bad. He cut himself very bad.
Hmm.
Um, is it time to say that he's fighting too much? I don't know. Instead of fighting 6 times in 2025, maybe you take a few months off. You fight one more time and you actually win it.
One
Six.
more time than six?
Yep. If he wants to
Okay.
fight 6 or 7 times, he could do that, but maybe just one fight is best. D-Rod just got the better of him, no excuses.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what's next for him at this point. Um, I mean, if you look, he's probably not going to be ranked after this performance. It wasn't a terrible performance by any means. He almost got the finish in the third round if he decided to stand and bang with him instead of trying to go for a flying knee and then an arm bar. That probably would have been a little bit better. I actually thought that during that fight, I thought D-Rod was out at one point, like out on his feet, but he wasn't apparently. So, yeah, but Kevin Holland just got rocked in the first and second rounds and just looked like he had no idea where he was during that whole fight. Like you said, he's probably still in the hospital. But I don't know. This will put a little bit of a damper on the year, but could still easily win the next two fights and be back. Maybe when we're going through, we got to find someone who we can fight now. At this point, got to give him one of the worst guys. So anyone that we could give him right now, what are you thinking, currently in the welterweight division for him?
I mean, we had a whole plan out of what was next for him, and I think if he beats D-Rod, he's fighting down right there. D-Rod's still very, very good. If he beats D-Rod, I think it would have been a Colby Covington Gil. They would have given him a bigger name higher up in the rankings, and then he's only 2 fights away from the belt. But that's neither here nor there. But at this point, it's gonna be like one of those like Neil Magny type fights. That's kind of what I'm thinking here.
Hmm.
You gotta feed him like some absolute bun. Like when he fought Ponzinibbio, that dude like and
Hmm.
he beat him up very badly. But there's a lot of guys like that where it's like I'm just gonna be honest, this is a huge it's not a one fight setback. This is like a multiple fight setback where he's gonna have to fight out of the rankings because he will probably be out of the rankings. And then he's gonna have
Hmm.
to do another one. And then if he wins both of those, which, that's not really typical of him, he'll have to fight another fight to get into the rankings. So I'm thinking Tony Ferguson, someone on that skill level.
Well, Tony Ferguson has a fight booked,
Oh,
unfortunately,
against Salt Poppy. Okay.
against Sal Poppy, so he's going to be busy that day probably.
Okay.
But I have a few names that we could go for.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, when I'm looking at guys, um, I'm thinking maybe Gunnar Nelson.
Okay, he could beat him for sure.
You
Hmm.
know, it
Decision.
it wouldn't be the first time that he would beat him this year. So maybe we could just do that again.
Run
That
it
could
back.
be fun. I'm sure Gunnar Nelson would love that as well. So that's a guy that he definitely could beat. Other guys that we could look at. I don't think Mike Malott is very good at all, if
Agree.
I'm being honest. So that could be a guy that, we could target. Neil Magny, probably going to lose his next fight. Who knows? I mean, he's just not very good at this point in his career, and I don't really think he was really that great ever. Um, he has fought, maybe, who knows? Maybe we'll get a Jeff Neal fight. This is kind of where the area we are right now to get back. But I don't think he can fight any guys up. Like, I'm looking at names right now, and Renat and Brian Battle and Jake Matthews, that I'm like, no, we'll pump the brakes on that. Um, so maybe a guy in like Phil Rowe. That could be a guy. That could be a name that we could use.
That's a name.
Um, Jeremiah Wells. Um, he's definitely I actually, I don't know if he was cut from the UFC or not, which if he wasn't, that could be a good idea. Um,
Okay.
Nico Price is another guy who just lost to Jacoby Smith
Terrible. He's very bad.
just to get the wheels turning again. I mean, this is just, I don't know. This is how far we are down right now. And my last option would be Alex Moreno. Um,
Mm. Yeah,
yeah.
Moreno's also not very good. Yeah,
So
it's tough. I'm also considering maybe a move down to lightweight. Move down again here. Be a little weight bully there. Take on Ilya maybe in a few fights, but
that
either
could
way,
be good. Or Patty.
could be Patty, could be a lot of people. Either way, I think I'm done. Until it might be a little bit till we see Kevin Holland next, so
We might have to wait 2 months.
it might even be longer. I hate to say it, but either way,
Yeah.
stop. Rest in peace. That we'll leave it at that. But we'll move on to the next fight. Patricio Pitbull gaining his first UFC victory over Dan Ige. He takes it by decision. I took Pitbull as an underdog. I think he's just kind of like a better version of Ige. Styles make fights. He got dominated by Yair because Yair's a lot faster and athletic, but Ige is kind of that more power puncher brawler that Pitbull likes to fight, and it worked. Pitbull, he showed great control on the ground. His striking was clean. It looked good. So this is kind of a fight more his speed. But did you have any other thoughts on the fight itself?
I'm just glad that he decided to show up this fight and went out there and showed us what he could actually do. Um, and who knows? I mean, he probably would have been done if he lost this fight realistically. At that point, like I just don't really know what to do with him. But assuming that he would be what, 11th, Danny Gay's tied for 11th, so maybe he'll be like 12th. I would assume he would want to move up. And like you said, Styles make fights, so I think an interesting guy he could go against, a guy that doesn't have a fight booked right now, would be Josh Emmett. I think that could be a fun fight to see. Josh Emmett, if you're going to go through with this pit bull path, you don't want to go and give him a guy like, obviously Gene Silva's fighting Diego Lopez, but you don't want to give him a guy like that. Maybe you give him a guy like Josh Emmett who does have that knockout power, but also I think could easily get beaten if in a 3 round fight. Pitbull versus Josh Emmett, he could just go in there and actually show what we've seen before from him and go and grapple and mix things up at least. So I think that could be an interesting fight to watch as well. Maybe even tap out Josh Emmett if he felt like it.
Yeah, I had two names written down. One of them was Josh Emmett, a huge power puncher who's kind of aimless right now because he's balancing wins and losses. I believe he might be 40 now. He's on that older side where he's not a real contender because he loses just a little too much. But it's another guy like Ige where he has a ton of power and a ton of like potential. He's not bad, but it's someone that we could really test Pitbull with. Pitbull's 38. He peaked probably 5 years ago, but it sounds like he has high aspirations in the UFC. And if he really wants to make moves, it's time's running out for him. Um, you don't really see 38-year-olds that sign to the UFC that really, they have like it's kind of like that Michael Chandler career path. You want to have your fun fights, and then you kind of want to get out of there. And if you can't get to the belt, so I think I had Josh Emmett, and then Giga Chikadze is the other name I had, where a very fun striker that he likes to hurt people. He hits very hard. Another guy that I think Pitbull might be similar to in the rankings. That would be a fun fight where the bottom of it's guys like Emmett and Chikadze and Steve Garcia newly added to the rankings where they have a ton of power. They're very fun to watch, but they're kind of aimless right now. They need a huge fight to boost their stock. Someone like Pitbull could do that, but either way, Pitbull looking good. He's on the upside, and then Danny Gay. Ever since he took that fight on like what 24-hour notice at welterweight, something crazy like that, it really hasn't been great. People apparently Dana promised him great stuff, and they've been kind of feeding him to the dogs. I'll be honest here.
Yeah. Um, I think that was also another name that I was looking at when I had two guys, and those are both of my guys. So it'll be interesting. Dane Ige, like as we know, he'll just keep fighting forever until they tell him that he's not allowed in the building anymore. He's just a great guy. He's got grit. Mr. 50K. So I don't think he'll be gone anytime soon. But as long as they can keep giving him some good fights, and hopefully Pitbull gets a few more fights under that. But on the opposite end, another unk that we saw go out there and dominate. I mean, this whole card, what underdog pretty much every single fight. Max Holloway and Poirier. Holloway was the favorite, but some
Mhm.
places you could get it even. But either way, I mean, those four fights, right? Costa was the underdog, Rodriguez, big underdog. Pitbull was like plus 200. Johnson, I mean, Zell Huber was like minus 800 some places. So you would have made a lot of money if you bet on all the underdogs on this. Michael Johnson, 3 wins in a row. He's like almost 50 years old, it feels like at this point. But he's, I mean, he's on the young side of 30 at 39. He's not 40 yet. So maybe a title run could be coming. 3 wins in a row. And he's gone in there and he's fought, I mean, almost everyone under the sun at this point in his long career. I mean, there's guys on here. Josh Emmett, a guy we just talked about. He fought against Nate Diaz, Beneil Dariush, Dustin Poirier. He had a stretch where he fought Poirier, Nate Diaz, Dariush, Khabib, and Justin Gaethje. 5 fights in a row. I mean, this guy's fought everyone in the UFC. Maybe, like we talked about, if Kevin Holland wants to move down to lightweight, we could see this fight. But so Huber, 2 losses in a row. Um, do you think that he's going to end up as one of those prospects that doesn't pan out, or do you think this may just be a setback for him?
It's tough to say because 3-3 on paper does not look good at all. But if you remember in 2024 against Ribovic, he had maybe the fight of the year. And I know that he just switched gyms to Extreme Couture with Eric Nicksick, and I don't know what they're doing over there, but he looked completely different in this fight. Where against Ribovic, when he had that fight of the year, he had so much buzz going to his striking, to his name as the Golden Boy. He was kind of known for being that long, like lengthy, rangy, dirty boxer. He had dirty elbows that were dropping people. He had great striking. He was getting on the inside and hurting people. And then he lets Michael Johnson, of all people, just kind of beat him up, and he didn't do anything about it. He stole his lunch money and he just stood there and let him do it.
He just took it like a good boy.
He did. He really did. And the one positive note to look at is Michael Johnson only beats he beats the worst fighters and he loses let me restart that. He beats great fighters, loses to terrible fighters. So going through deduction there, I think Zell Huber has a lot of potential left, but it's another
Exactly.
weird loss, kind of like Trey Ogden. It was his debut, but like losing to Michael Johnson, they're kind of feeding you that as like the featured opener on the main card. They're giving you a 40-year-old man to beat up, and you let him just beat you up like that. I just don't love that from him, but I think he needs to go back to whatever he's doing, get down and dirty again, drag him into deeper water. He was just standing there like an actual punching bag, and that was really sad to see. But respect to Michael Johnson, he might be the true answer to Ilia Topuria that no one is mentioning yet. That I think we could see a little run here from Michael Johnson as he goes into 40 years of age.
Yeah, and like you said, he only beats good fighters and loses to bad ones. That's why he lost to Khabib. That's what I'm hearing over here. But I don't know. Zellhuber, he's like one of those guys. I mean, I was looking through, and there's a bunch of lightweight guys who were kind of in this past like 2 years that you could look at guys like Bahamondes, guys like we just talked about with Zell Huber. There's other guys too, kind of within this same crop that kind of just came in with Ribovich. And all of these guys, some of them have done a lot better recently. In uh, a guy in Bahamondes who obviously just lost to Fiziev, but still a great fight. I think he has a bright future. But all these guys kind of a similar-ish type of run, and some of them aren't going to pan out. Some of them will. I don't know. Zell Huber, he's kind of on the fence. I need to see something good for him in his next fight. But it is going to be tough because you go out there and you give him someone, if you give him a can just to build up his confidence again, does he really prove that much? I don't know. That's kind of the hard part for me because, yes, he could be pretty decent, but if you need to give him guys that aren't great, like he was supposed to fight Elvis Brenner before this. I mean, I had to look this guy up because, he's fought um, 5 times in the UFC and he fought against Orobai. And I'm pretty sure I watched that fight, but don't even know who this guy is. And they don't even have a picture of him in the UFC. It's just a picture of him in some random tights right now. So I don't know. I think I'll have to see something big from him in his next performance. And maybe they can give him something good, but I think he might, I don't want to call it too soon, but he might be one of those prospects that may not completely pan out, but could still be a solid guy.
That's crazy disrespect to Elvis Brenner, by the way. He's a dog, but I will say if that fight, let's say it did happen, Elvis Brenner is one of those guys that gets KO'd in crazy fashions. He wants it to happen. He goes out there with no defense and he either is killing someone or he's getting killed. So that could be a name that Zellhuber could use. But one name I had for him to get his just to like decide if he's like legit or not, or if he's just a fake prospect, is Manuel Torres, another guy that fought at the Sphere. He's another one of those prospects that fought Bahamondes. And he beat Drew Dober by KO, and he got brutally KO'd like multiple times in the same fight at the Sphere. So Torres could be one of those guys. Uh, where he fights out Huber, loser, like, sorry, like, enjoy LFA. You make a few fights there and you make a little run back. But yeah, so Huber, it's like he was one fight away before the Johnson fight of being very legit, looking at the rankings perhaps. And this is a huge setback for him.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if he's looking for 40-year-olds to go for Tony Ferguson, but it seems like his luck isn't on this side right now. Um, but next off, we are going to be talking about UFC on ABC. So this will be live for anyone that has cable, anyone that wants to watch this on ESPN as well at the same time. The UFC usually does this at least once a year, usually when they go over to the great kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Shout out the plug there. So this should be a great card overall. I mean, this is one of those fight nights people are like, oh, why haven't the pay-per-views been great recently? Maybe this was an example of that because they wanted to stack this card. I mean, they easily could have put most of these fights on a main card and people would have been happy. But they stacked this card instead, which is all right. Robert Whitaker versus RDR, I think is going to be a fantastic fight. Mavzar versus Aaron Pico is scratched no longer because Mavzar, as we know, decides sometimes he doesn't really want to fight. It just depends. So maybe we'll get that rebooked. Um, uh, Piotr Jan versus Marcus McGee is also on this card. Still wondering how that got booked, but if Marcus McGee goes out there and wins, who knows? Maybe we could be seeing an underdog story, just like in the next one with based Bryce Mitchell and Saeed Nurmagomedov. Shara Bullet's on here as well. I mean, there's some great guys. Nikita Krylov versus Bogdan Guskov. Tabitha Ritchie versus Amanda Ribas. Asu versus Ramazan. I don't even know how to pronounce either of these guys' names, but Asu, pretty solid guy. I was very happy. In his last fight, obviously losing to Manel Cape. But I think he's a pretty solid fighter and contender in the flyweight division. I know you're the extravanaire in that, if that's the word. Um,
Yeah, you're close though.
Martin Boudet is fighting. I mean, I can't even lie. Damon Blackshear as the first fight of the night. That gets me excited. I'm a fan of him. So this whole fight card is pretty decent. Okay, we can dive into it. If you want to go through anything through the prelims, we can go through that pretty quickly, and then get on to the main card.
Yeah, I mean, this card may be better than 318, which is, hey, when it's in Abu Dhabi in the UAE, Dana's got to load it up. You can't blame the guy. They're giving him bread. But there's a ton of bangers. I would like to say Carlos Leal is fighting Muslim Salikov, which is going to be a banger. But those are two knockout artists on the prelims. Tabitha Ritchie, always love watching her. Um, and watching her fight. And then Shara Bullet, they're giving him. Marc-Andre Barrio is not someone I'm interested in watching at all. He's not good, and I think they're giving Shara like knock this dude out in front of your home support, get your attention back.
Right.
Bryce Mitchell versus Nurmagomedov. There's like 6 million Nurmagomedovs, or there's actually only like 200K or 300K maybe of them around there. But Bryce Mitchell is on his path to fight all of them.
Yeah.
And I don't know what he said to the UFC that's giving him these tough matchups, but he's getting very, very tough matchups. So good luck to Bryce Mitchell there. And then Piotr Jan versus McGee. I love that fight. It's such a weird fight, an unexpected fight to book where Marcus McGee he's above 35, I believe, and he's one of those names where you would see him on like the prelims of a pay-per-view and he's knocking people out bad. And he's another name that you're like, oh, this guy's a gatekeeper. He's incredible. And then they gave him Piotr Jan, which is like Piotr Jan's like possibly fighting O'Malley for the belt next. So that was insane to see. That's gonna be a great fight. Could be way too big of a step up. I meant before this fight, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Final fight
Yeah. I was just wondering when he would be fighting Sean O'Malley for the belt.
yeah, that would
The
be
BMF.
that could be a possibility too. And then Evlaev, sadly, I would think it was his wife's Sweet 16 party or something like that, but he couldn't make it to this one. But Aaron Pico, I don't care who they book him against. Aaron Pico needs to fight on this card. He is one of the only Bellator guys or PFL guys, whatever you want to call it, that I think is incredible. And he's still young. He's very good and has a ton of potential. I want Pico to fight, feed him, like give him like a contender series guy that will just take like 20K to get like beat up real bad. And then obviously Whitaker versus RDR. I love that fight. RDR, I've completely, when they announced his signing, I'm like double champ. Wow, this guy's the next guy up for the belt at middleweight. And then he fights Mearshart, and it was the worst fight. It was like two blind guys that have never boxed before. It was insane. But either way, he's massive in the division. He's been surprising me. And the Whitaker fight, he might do 6 or 7 submission attempts, but it's going to be such a good fight where Whitaker, I mean, he's kind of having a little career revival too. So I'll just leave it at that, where I assume Whitaker and RDR is the fight you're most interested in. But how do you think that fight would end up going?
Yeah, I'll talk about the Aaron Pico real quick. He did call for a rebooking against Mavzar, so I think he wants that, which is smart. I mean, if I'm him, right, I want to go fight the number one contender in the featherweight division right now, and if I win, I'm the number one guy, and if not, I can still go probably get a ranked fight after that as long as I don't get knocked out in 2 seconds. So pretty good move from him. Yeah, the other fights, I think they'll be exciting and interesting to watch, but the one, like you said, that I think is very interesting is RDR versus Robert Whitaker. I know you were not a big fan of RDR after that first performance, saying that he was terrible, which, I mean, that first fight, you could easily say that. Um, so far this year has beat Kevin Holland, allegedly, and Bo Nickel. He fraud checked Bo Nickel, but,
That's
you
your
know,
boys, both of them.
I know it is. But that brings me to my point here that it reminds me of another one of my boys, very similar career path that we're looking at right here.
Similar
A
look
little,
too, perhaps.
yeah, similar looking, similar fight style, Dutch boys, a guy that, is currently the champion, who a lot of people were doubting. He went through some guys, had to go up against a tough top five guy in the same person, Robert Whitaker. A goofy style. That guy, obviously the champion right now in DDP. 3 letters, RDR, DDP. I mean, these guys, I think, are destined to fight each other. I just think at some point they have to fight each other because they just have the same exact career path at this point. I think RDR is going to go out there and get a second round knockout against Robert Whitaker the same way DDP did. He's just going to go in there, get those KSI overhands, and I mean, if there's ever been a script, the script is for RDR to win this fight. I can't be convinced otherwise. Whitaker might be better. I don't even know if he can move his jaw after the last fight, but the script says that I was given that RDR has to win this fight.
I'm gonna be honest, that's a lot of similarities. I didn't even notice all that. But you should hate this guy for beating up both of your boys. But I mean, I was the most wrong about DDP that I'll be about anybody ever. He did look extremely goofy in his first fight, and then he kept beating people. Wow. I mean, the similarities are there. The Dutch, the three-letter name. I mean, we might DDP, the only guy that can beat him is just a goofier version of himself. That would be the ultimate storyline.
Yeah.
Could be a possibility here. I kind of like what you're saying there. That's giving me even more excited for that fight. But speaking of another one of our boys is Tatsuro Taira. The
Hmm.
next fight night, we have three.
Friend of the channel.
Friend of the channel. We have three more fight nights as a reminder before 319 in August. And next one up is Albazi versus Taira. And obviously Tatsuro Taira was on the fast track to the belt. Then he had a slight delay there against Royval. That was a bloodbath. But either way, this card's not as stacked, Apex card, but super hyped for Albazi versus Taira.
Yeah, we can go through this one a little quicker. My boy Elvis Brenner's on this card. I didn't even realize that till right now against another one of the clones in the lightweight division. This time in Ribovic, Chris Duncan versus Rebecca in the co-main event. Yeah, this is just gonna be crazy. I'm actually very excited about Nakamura fighting again. I mean, we've talked about him before. He's just like insane. So obviously that last fight losing by decision, but before that, I think I'll be excited to see if he can come back. Trayshawn Gore, the GOAT, finally coming back after a little while. Andre Lima versus Felipe Burns. There's definitely some names on here. But Amir Albazi versus Tatsuro Taira, I would assume based on what we're looking with the rankings, is this a number one contender fight?
I would have to. I would say yes, but slightly hesitant because of the implication of Joshua Van being the actual number one contender. I would say I would assume Van versus Pantoja is getting booked right now.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then, yeah, I think this would definitely be the next fight. Albazi has been one of the top contenders, and I don't think anyone can name a single one of his victories. He has, like, he's just, that injury has really delayed his progress. So this could be another guy that Tyra can beat, but. I will say about this card, if you love prospects, this is a fantastic card to watch. All the way down to the bottom, Azamat Bakayev is fighting Torres Finney, which is going to be the most wrestling matchup you will ever see. He's very, very good. Torres Finney, I'm not a huge fan of. I know that's your boy. But Nick Klein representing Wisconsin out there, Rodolfo Vieira, Rinya Nakamura, as you mentioned, trying to get some stock back. And I would like to mention Kevin Vallejos is the opener to the main card. I think he's the number one prospect in the UFC right now, outside of the rankings, under 5 fights, under 30 years old. He is an insane striker. He really reminds me of Ilya with his build, his frame, and his striking. His only loss is to John Silva, who he barely lost to, and he fought him. I believe he was 20 or 19 years old at the time. So do not miss that Vallejos fight. That's going to be a banger. And then my boy Chris Duncan is taking on Rebecca. That's going to be a tough fight for the both of them. But Tatsuro Taira, I think, is going to get the win here and become the number one contender. And then if we see Taira versus Van, that is one of the first fights, I think, where that's going to be a title fight of two guys born in the 2000s. That will be the next era of the UFC.
We did it.
We did it.
And speaking of the Apex, one of the best, if we could make an Apex main event, I think it's Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez. Um, but there's some other decent fights on this card. Alex Perez versus your boy Steve Erceg. Unfortunately, maybe a decision away from being champion right now. But since then, who knows? Maybe this is his Dominic Reyes comeback right now. Maybe he'll be able to reel it back in here. Angela Hill also on this card, as we know. And some other guys, Christian Leroy Duncan. I know you're a big fan of guys with the last name Duncan. Shout out Duncan May. So who else do you want to talk about on this card?
Interesting shout out there. There's a ton of prospects on this one as well. Elijah Smith, his dad was in the UFC. He had an incredible fight on the Contender Series. Looking forward to him. Julius Walker lost his debut, but another big prospect there. And then CLD, Christian Leroy Duncan, is very, very talented when he wants to be. And then Christian Rodriguez, the prospect killer. Also very talented himself. Fighting Andre Touchy-Feely, that would be a great fight. And I would Perez versus Ursag, also a good fight there. But I would say Anthony Hernandez, I genuinely think is one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC. He's only 31, top 10 ranked middleweight. He is an incredible grappler. He has great striking. He has grit. He has a good chin. He is very, very good and very young in the division. I think he's going to dog walk the lead say here, fingers crossed. And he's going to put his name in serious conversations at the top of the division. I'm a big fan of Fluffy. I think he's very, very good. And for some reason, no one's really aware of how good he truly is.
Yeah, I think there's always one of those guys in each division that is kind of bouncing towards the top 10, and maybe just doesn't get those opportunities as much, but then finally does get an opportunity and gets to shine through. We've seen plenty of those before. A guy like Sean Strickland, who was kind of around that 10 area for a while, then finally got that opportunity, went out and got the title, unfortunately, at one point. But, there's plenty of guys that have Sean Brady, another guy who is kind of in that top 10 area, finally got a shot against Leon Edwards, and then obviously beat him because, I mean, who couldn't at this point? But then moved up and then got into that top area. So I think, like you said, I mean, I could definitely see that happening with this card, and the next three cards combined, we're going to see some pretty good fights. Who knows? We could see a fight of the year within these next few cards. There's definitely some good fights coming up. And then after that, we can preview our next pay-per-view with, so far, I mean, there's some pretty good fights on here. I'm pretty excited about some of these guys. Brian Battle, I'm a big fan of him, so I'm happy to see him fighting again. Maybe he'll make it up the loss that we saw from Kevin Holland, so that could be fun. But in his last fight, won by decision, a little controversial for some people. Edson Barboza on here as well. Chase Gooning Hooper is on here as well. Jessica Andrade versus Loopy, as we know. We two guys that Kevin Holland has actually beat on here in Mearshart versus Mikel O. Both guys that, Kevin Holland add to that resume. Your favorite fighter of all time in
Diego Ferreira, fighting your favorite fighter.
Bobby King
I see you
Green.
call him King Green. Yep.
Kaya Sakura finally getting another fight against Tim Elliott. I'm actually very excited to see that one. I want to see what he can do. Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier versus MVP, another great fight. Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. DDP versus Khamzat Chimaev, and an unannounced co-main event. It was previewed this weekend that it's unannounced, and it is the co-main event. So it's not like we don't have one. I think they're just waiting to announce it. So I'm assuming it's going to be something pretty big, since they're kind of waiting to announce it. And I don't think they're just going to move one of those fights from the bottom up. Like, they're not going to put your boy King Green, unfortunately for you, on the main card. We could be in for a pretty big co-main event, hopefully. But even if we aren't, I mean, I'm pretty happy with all four of these fights already, so it can't get worse.
Yeah, I agree. I really like this card. MVP Cannonier, that's two of my favorite fighters right there. That's going to be a great fight. Carlos Prates fighting again after the Gary fight. Kaya Sakura, I really like, but Tim Elliott, if we're being honest, that might be a tough fight for him. Tim Elliott's one of the
Hmm.
best gatekeepers in the UFC, and he has been for a long time now. But when you look at the co-main event, I have no idea who this could be. Could it be someone like Armin or something like that? Some guy who's missed out that they're gonna throw on here because of injuries. It could be someone completely out of nowhere, but when you look at you have Cannonier, MVP, Protez, Neal, Asakura. These guys have all headline cards before. They're headlining level talents. So it kind of shocks me we haven't seen a Coleman yet. There's like guys like Gamrot maybe. There's a lot of guys that haven't fought in a while. They're highly ranked. It could be maybe someone like Aaron Pico gets moved onto this as the co-main. I really have no idea. Do you have any names for the co-main if you could throw out a guess?
I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Someone asked if we would see Pico versus Evloev for the co-main event, which would be a good fight, but I don't know. That would be interesting. Obviously, from what we've heard before, the main rumor is that it is going to be Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. That's what DDP revealed before, which if
Mhm.
that happened would obviously be a great fight as well to see. So I don't know. I think the most interesting part is that they announced it that way, and they said that there's a co-main event that they haven't announced yet. It's TBD versus TBD. So hopefully both of those guys can put on a good performance because I've never seen either of them fight.
TBD could even take on DDP for the belt,
And then
but
RDR.
and RDR, that's also a possibility. But either way, the main event, it's going to be a banger. I mean,
Hmm.
Kamaya, when he was introduced to the scene late 2019, 2020, I was like, I was in shock of how good he was. I was heartbroken, almost in tears when Kevin Holland went in for the gentleman high five before the fight, and the thug Kamayev absolutely ragdolled him.
That
But if
doesn't
I'm
count.
being honest, that fight put it struck fear into my heart. I saw
Hmm.
Holland get ragdolled like that, and I'm like, Kamaev's only the best of the best can do that to someone like Kevin Holland. So this is going to be a fun fight because DDP, he's been kind of goofing his way around to beating everyone in his path. And Kamaev's not a guy that you can goof around with on the ground and do. When when DDP fought Izzy, he got knocked out into a somersault, into an ankle hold, into a choke. It was an incredible sequence where he choked out Izzy. And Kamaev is he's a killer on the ground. He likes to mess with people. He'll throw you against the cage, keep you there, choke you out. So DDP, I think he's really going to be unfazed about that. We'll see what happens. He could win by, I mean, there's so many, anything could happen. A meteor could hit the canvas or something. But Kamaev has been prone to gassing out. So DDP's lifeline could be kind of just like messing around in there. Wait till Kamaev gasses himself out in his first title fight, and then DDP goes in for the kill. How do you think the fight will go beside a DDP anvil to the face on Kamaev?
I'm thinking maybe we see Brock Lesnar in a forklift coming out and pulling up the ring.
Mhm.
That could be interesting. I think what's going to happen, I don't want to reveal too much, but the RDR knockout, like I said before, DDP wins this fight. I'm just setting things up. I think we could potentially be seeing a potential match between them within the next 6 months. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to expose too much, maybe within the next
Sure.
9 months. But you know, if RDR wins, he's top five. Who knows? Maybe he even takes Izzy's spot at four. He's better than him. Kamzat's at three. He's gonna drop down. We might as well put RDR at three if he knocks out Robert Whitaker. Sean Strickland, Mr. Based, unfortunately, isn't going to get a title fight again. Imavov, yeah. So it'll probably be DDP versus RDR. But I do think Dricus, honestly, looking at this fight, as a DDP super fan, he's been my boy since day one. They laughed at me when I took him over Robert Whitaker, which, like I said, there's a lot of similarities going on right now. So it's good to point those all out. But I honestly do think, all bias aside, that he does have a good chance in this fight. He's a guy that everyone jokes about it. He just goes out there and does whatever he feels like doing. He just kind of mashes the buttons, but it wins every single time. He does better every single time. And 11 fight win streak, never lost in the UFC. I've never seen this guy lost. My one favorite fighter that who has never let me down, Kevin Holland let me down, unfortunately, a few times. Sean O'Malley, I don't know if he'll ever get back to the title,
Oh, Nickel.
unless he defights, yeah, Bo Nickel, unless he defends against Piotr Jan, like you were saying earlier, that could be next. But DDP, I honestly think somehow, some way is going to win this fight. the most interesting part is if he goes out and knocks him out or submits him, and then he went 2 5-round decisions against Sean Strickland, but finished Kamaev, Adesanya, and Whitaker. It just doesn't make much sense. But I don't know. I do think DDP has a very good shot in this fight. Kamaev could just go out there and destroy him, and I wouldn't really be surprised. But I do think, like you said, that gas tank, DDP has unlimited stamina. It looks like he's always drained, but he's just never is somehow. So I do think that he actually can pose a threat to Kamaev in this fight. And like we said before, I mean, Kamaya versus um, Kamaru Usman before on short notice. Kamaru Usman did some pretty good work, and that was at a point where Usman, not 100% in his prime. So DDP in his prime right now. Um, he's in his prime, and it's the title reign. It's not over yet. We're gonna be going on holiday after this, and yeah.
Completely. DDP is in his he's in his prime. That is undoubtedly true. But I mean, going through it myself, I had Kevin Holland against Kamai, or that's not true. I thought Kamai was gonna ragdoll him. I wanted Kevin Holland to win, but I had Usman beating Kamaev. I had Whitaker beating Kamaev. I just think he's not this. He doesn't look. I don't know if it was health issues, visa issues, whatever it was with Kamaev, where it's not that same guy from 2020 that was knocking people out in like 10 seconds. Like Mearshart, he like high-fived him and then he got knocked out. It was like instantaneously. And I just don't see the same guy where Usman in a 5-round fight, I still believe Usman wins that fight easily. He
Hmm.
was handling him well until the scorecards, really. And then Whitaker, I was wrong about that. He got his face smashed in half, which is kind of absurd. DDP could get he could get his face cracked in half. He could be the first ever guy to get his skull just fractured by a choke.
No. Mm-mm.
But he is in his prime. They're both undefeated. This is gonna be a banger. Someone's gonna lose that O. And I don't know why. I just think DDP can do it. I just think it's going to be a later. He's not going to be able to finish Kamaev early, but he's just going to do his unorthodox stuff. I love when he's in the interviews. He's like, I have no idea what I'm doing in there. And it works somehow. So I think it's going to be up to DDP to survive whatever unorthodox training he does. He has to make sure to survive, get through there, and then in the championship rounds, I think we could see a bloodied up, both of them bloodied up, exhausted. And DDP is just throwing 1-2 Magoos all over Kamaev, just randomly throwing. It hurts him, crumples him to the ground. Kamaev gets TKO'd. I don't know why I can see it around 4 or 5, but I think this is DDP's fight to lose, honestly. He should go in there and don't be afraid of. He should shoot for a takedown. Honestly, don't
Hmm.
be afraid of Kamaev. Like, shoot for a takedown. Show him you're the champ. Show him who's boss, and extend your legacy even more.
Yeah, I think kind of what I see going is, this is just my finish right now. I think Kamzat's going to jump on his back, go for the choke, but DDP's going to throw him over. He's going to hold him like this, Kamaev with his face towards his groin area, going to hit him with a tombstone pile driver. Then DDP jumps off of the wall, does a swanton bomb on him, and then goes for the cover. And just it's over. It's a verbal tap out after 3 seconds.
Wow, I'm already picturing that in my head. That's certainly something to look forward to. But next time you see us, we will be celebrating DDP. Banning will either be crying or celebrating the fight, whatever does happen to DDP. But my official prediction is going to be DDP. Maybe even we could see a submission here. Who knows? But I'm saying round
Yeah,
4. He's gonna go for a takedown. He's gonna get Kamaev down in his own ring in Chicago, and then he's gonna TKO an exhausted Kamaev. He's gonna give up. He's not gonna know what's happening in there. Kamaev, nothing he's gonna do is gonna be working. And DDP defends that belt, does some weird call out, and maybe we see RDR DDP or DDP versus TBD. Who knows?
we could. I think I'm taking DDP via shenanigans.
Okay, there's the official prediction by Banning. But next time you see us at episode 12, it will be after that. Whatever does happen there. So check out Banning's channel at Next Man Up MMA, and we will see you then when DDP defends his belt. Peace.